What's going on, guys? Today we got another big upgrade. We are going to be upgrading the Cutlass with the Bilstein B6 performance shocks, front and rear. I do have 90-10s in it now, but I want more handling and performance on the street rather than drag racing right now. Seems like a pretty straightforward, simple setup. So we're going to get to it, and we'll see what difference it makes. So stay tuned. So before we start unbolting anything, Bilstein gives you the hardware for the shocks. So I just wanted to show you guys how to set this up before you start unbolting the things. So let's get to it. Okay, so for the front shocks, you were going to take the hardware by putting this darker one on first, then the bushing, and then you're going to slide it through the control arm. Then you're going to put another bushing on, and then the thicker washer, and then the thinner washer, and then you take the nut and you thread that on, and then you zap that down to the torque spec. So that's how you do the fronts. I'm not going to show you on the other one because I just showed you on this one, but yeah, that's how you assemble the shock. So let's get to taking the 90-10s out from Lakewood and let's start tearing it apart. All right, so I have the car jacked up, just the front, and you'll see that there's two bolts right here. They are 1/2 inch, so you're just gonna zap those out. And then right here, you'll see that there's one more nut on top of the upper control arm. That is a 9/16, so we're gonna zap that out. And as you heard, the shock just fell straight out. So we're going to replace it with the new one, and I'll show you that right now. One of the bushings is still stuck up there, so I'm using a pry bar just to get it off. I'm sticking it through the bottom where the shock goes, and hopefully I can get that to fall off. Just like that. All right, so you want to make sure you have the hardware in your other hand as well. You want to fish it through the hole. All right, so I'm in the hole, and I'm taking the hardware and putting it on the top of the shock here. And now I'm going to take the nut right here and thread that on. All right, so I'm using a jack to compress the shock. It's a little bit challenging, but once you get one threaded on, hopefully it'll hold, and you can rotate a little bit to get the other one in because the top is threaded in. So once you have these threaded in and the top threaded in, all you got to do is tighten it down, and that should be it. So I'm going to zap these down real quick. All right, so we zapped the bottoms down. So now we're going to move up to the top. All right, so what I found is that there's a little hex right there on the actual shock, and that nut will just spin if you zap it. So I have a 17mm wrench and an Allen key that fits, and I'm just going to tighten it like that. I'm going to look up the torque spec in a minute, but as of right now, that's how I'm going to lock it down. I took an Allen key like that, and I put my 17mm wrench on like that, and I held this down while tightening it. The torque spec is, I believe, 8 foot-pounds from what I saw online, but obviously I can't get a torque wrench on that, so I just tightened it until the bushing started to scrunch a little bit. You don't want it too tight, and you also don't want it too loose, but I feel like this is a good, safe bet right here. So I'm going to do the other side. It's basically the same thing. It's exactly the same thing, so I'm not going to film it, but that is how you do the fronts, and then we're going to move on to the rears. All right, so we finally got the other side on. Let's see if we can show you that there. So both of the front Bilstein B6 shocks are on the front. So now we're going to lower the front and jack the rear up. I'm going to back the car in, and then I'm going to show you guys how to do the rear. So let's get to it. All right, so I'm under the rear of the car here. I have the UMI rear support, so the bolts are a little different than the factory ones that came with it. These are 1/2 inch. So what you're going to want to do is take these 2 top bolts out, and then right here, in my case I have 11/16 for this one nut right here, and then you also have to hold that nut right there. So once you hold that, you can take this one off, and then the whole shock will come right out. So I'm going to do this side right now, and I'll get back to you. Okay, so I took the original shock out, and I had this this mount right here that was like that. So I had to jack up I took the wheels off, and I jacked it up by the drum just to get some room in there, because you couldn't really fit a wrench or socket in there, but jacking it up with the wheel off, I had enough clearance to get that nut loose, and I held the other end with vice grips, and I loosened that. So, sorry. So I finally got this out, and you do not need this. If you do have it, you don't need it. The shock comes with a bolt that threads right in, so I threaded that in right there. It'll button right up to the axle. You just gotta thread that. That is 3/4, and then right here I have those threaded up already. I didn't zap them down yet, but those are 1/2 inch. So you zap those 2 down, and you tighten this one, and that's pretty much it. So like I said, one side is the exact same for the other. So I'm going to do the other side without filming, and that should be it for this install. So I'll get back to you once everything is done. Alright guys, we finally got all of the shocks installed. So we're going to take it for a test drive and see if we can tell a difference. Hopefully it handles better with these new shocks, and also all the braces that I put on throughout the time. So like I said, let's take it for a test drive and see how it handles. Alright guys, I just took it for a really good test drive. It seems to be sitting at the same height, which is what I expected. Took it down a road near me that has a bunch of turns and raked hard, and that curvy road really handled great. Turning while giving it some gas handled great. I'm no longer scared, and I'm starting to trust this car a lot more with the way that it handles. Definitely worth an upgrade if you want better handling. I know the 90-10 shocks that I took out are meant for drag racing, and it's probably better on the drag strip, but I take this out on the road and drive it around in the city more often than I take it down the strip. So I thought that this was a much needed upgrade, especially for the handling. Like I said, it handled great, so I highly recommend anyone do this if you have the extra money to get this. But I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you guys found this video informational and helpful. I hope you guys do this to your G-bodies, as it's a huge upgrade. But other than that, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.